Hello, everybody. Welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee.
And I'm Joey Evans.
Today, we are going to do the unthinkable, the
What?
unfathomable.
It's not possible.
Joey's going to review a print and play game.
What?
Yeah.
With Christopher Yee.
That's true. That's true. This is 52 Realms Adventures.
Yep.
This is from Postmark Games.
Mm-hmm.
And you've backed, I'm sure, every single one of their projects.
I have.
How many have you printed?
One.
How many have... This is it?
Actually, two. No. One before this one.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you play that one?
I did. Wait, did they do Koala Rescue Club?
They did.
Yeah, so I did do that one. I did not do... They did the Voyages one too, right?
Yeah.
Which is the big one that's like ever updating, right?
I mean, so yeah, one of the neat things is you can back it or you can buy it on their web store, and they do support these games. Yeah.
I've heard good things about that one. I have not played that one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Have you played that one?
I've not, no. I played the battle card system, which is also like this. This is a print and play game, but it's not a roll and write. You don't mark the sheets. In this case, you play with a deck of cards, actually.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how this one plays, then we'll give you our thoughts. Mm-hmm. Here's 52 Realms Adventure set up on the table. This is the map here, which you will combine with one of the available characters in the game. So with this, I could either play the Barbarian. I'm going to play the Seer over here. And there are more characters available for you to print out, and you can combine any characters with any of the maps. This is kind of the introductory map here. You'll need to provide 3 markers, they can just be cubes on your own, and 1 standard deck of cards with no jokers. So, the game is a dungeon crawl. You are going to be represented by one of your markers here in the start area. These other 2 markers are going to facilitate combat, keeping track of what type of enemy you're fighting and what their health is. You are represented over here on your character sheet. You'll start the game with 2 items, which can be used one time. They're one-time use items that'll go away. But you'll also have equipment here, once you reveal at least 20 value worth of equipment. And the goal of the game is to try to get as much loot as you can before you get knocked out from wounds or exhaust the deck. This is kind of the timer of the game here. Loot is going to be points that you have at the end of the game. You want to explore through the dungeon, get over here to the boss, and win that battle in order to win. Every character also has some of their own special abilities, and we'll explain some of these as we kind of go through. You start here in the room labeled Start, and then you can, on your turn, move in any direction allowed by the arrows. You're going to be moving chamber to chamber towards the boss here. From the start chamber, if I move north, I would have to fight a level A enemy, and then I'd wind up in the library, and I get to resolve whatever the effects of this room is, or I could move to the right. In this case, instead of fighting, I would have to spend a level of energy for my equipment to get past this challenge of the hallway, and then I would encounter the cloaked figure. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to move to the right. So I would have to expend a card of at least 4 value, but I'm going to use some of the special abilities that the Seer has over here. With shifting focus, once per travel or battle, I can spend an equipment as if it was 1 rank higher or lower. So I'm going to turn this 3 into a 4 and exhaust it so I can pass through this clearing here. Now the other thing is, with my Wanderlust ability, if I travel with the exact amount, so in this case I did, by turning this into a 4, it says I gain a loot. So this is one of the ways that my character is allowed to gain some treasure. Once I have done that, I will move over here into the room with the cloaked figure, and I'll reveal the top card of the deck. That's what this particular room's effect is. And whatever the top card is, I'm going to get that effect. So in this case, based on the suit, it could turn into an item, it could turn into more equipment, it could turn into a wound, or in the case of diamonds, this is fortunate for me, I get it as loot. So I now have 10 loot. From this point, I can now choose to adventure north and resolve the flooded room effect, or I could go to the go east. And I'm going to show you how this works by fighting a level A enemy. When you enter into a combat, you're going to reveal the top 2 cards of the deck. The stronger one is going to become the enemy, and the lower one is the reward. So I'm going to fight evil Tom Vassal over here, and I'm going to potentially gain the reward of 7 points, or 7 as a reward card. So, based on the type of enemy, you mark it with one of your cubes, and this is kind of optional, but this is a ghoul here. Now, its base health is the face value of the card, so it could be 2, 5, 7, 13 in this case, because the king is 13, plus an additional 5 because it is a rank A enemy. If it was a rank C enemy like the boss, it would be plus 15 to whatever its face value health is. How does combat resolve now? We're going to flip over the top card of the deck for every round of combat. So we see, okay, the ghoul has a spade attack. So attack for 7 can only defend with one of the black suits, clubs or spades. So my response now at this point, the enemy hasn't taken this action yet. You go through the attack phase first. So you can either choose to defend as one of the options there to negate this damage. And because I would be defending with more than it, I completely block it. Or I could choose to attack with the value of one of these cards. Or I could choose to rest, which would allow all of my exhausted equipment to become readied again. Or I might use one of the special abilities of my character. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to attack for 10. I'm doing 10 damage to the enemy. So I would reduce his health tracker down 10 steps. Oh, maybe this wasn't a good decision of mine because I landed on this area right here that says I inflict a wound to myself. So I flip over this card. Oh no, I've just done 12 damage to myself because I could have made a better choice. Maybe I could have chosen to attack for a different value. If you can make it land on one of these spaces, for example, this allows you to parry or to block any of the incoming effects. If you land here, you get to refresh one of your equipment cards. So there's definitely some choices to make here with combat, and I made the worst one. On top of this, now the enemy goes and is going to attack for 7. So the way that this is done is you flip over the top card of the deck. If its value is higher than 7, it is a miss from the enemy, right? The wound value has to be lower than the attack value. And in this case, it is. The 5 is smaller than the 7 strength of the attack. So I now have 17 wounds. 20 will knock out my character. I can just take it out. I defeat it. So this enemy is defeated. And then I gain this card. I can gain this as a reward in one of 3 areas. I can either, for its suit, make it an item. I can make it new equipment so I have more energy. Or I can take it as loot so that I have more points. After this combat, I come here to this stash. I get to draw 3 cards, keep one of them as loot, so on and so forth. So you see, this is how you adventure, resolving all the effects of the rooms until you fight the boss, which will be a very large combat. If you succeed, then however much loot you've collected is going to be your points plus 2 points per unspent item over here. You can always spend items at any time, like this health potion maybe to, get rid of one of your wound cards. Things like that to help mitigate your adventure. So at the end, if you defeat the boss, you'll win and you just count up your score. If you take more wounds inflicted than your total health, if you run out the entire deck, then you have lost. So that is 52 Realms Adventures. So to start off, I like this idea of using the deck of cards for this dungeon crawl, right? I know you do too, right?
Yeah.
I have a small collection of playing cards. I like that. I
Yes,
just
you do.
enjoy them, right? And I imagine that you as well have a collection of cards, right?
Which is sad. When I tried to play this, I could find none except for, I sent you a picture of the Scooby-Doo card. So I played, and it really changed the feeling of the game.
Well, this is what's neat, right? So with print and play games, you print it out and then you provide some components. I like that there's very little you need to provide.
Right.
You probably own a deck of cards. If not, go to the corner store and you can get all the rest of the components you need, right?
Yep.
But for someone, especially if you are a playing card aficionado, I've got different themed decks. I have an Alice in Wonderland's War themed deck. So it's fun to play with that. And then, there's a Cthulhu Death May Die themed deck, or the Scooby-Doo, or this one is like a mythical folklore of different regions. So it's fun to just kind of, you get different themes within your own, of this game.
Right.
By just playing with different decks of cards, and I like that a lot.
Which was cool because you sent me a picture of, I think, the Cthulhu ones, and just looked dark. It looked really gritty.
Yeah. So you kind of have instant retheming. Now with that, this game is not exactly deep thematically, so to speak.
No, it is not. It's very light, and the fact that, like you say, you don't ever mark anything on it. Mm-hmm. So you say you play this anywhere. You really can, because this is capable of playing on your tablet, which I have done. Mm-hmm. It's just, you can sit there because you don't mark, you just place things on top of there. You can still tuck the cards to the side. It's pretty clever that you can actually really travel with nothing but a deck of cards. And you can use coins for the little markers.
Right. But that being said, I think that they did a fantastic job with the art direction on this game. I think it looks amazing. I love that your character there is like it's a riff on a traditional French playing face card.
Yep.
Right, like all that type of stuff. And then I love mixing the different characters, playing with different characters. You can play with any map. I think that's a huge boon to this.
Yeah, and the characters really add a nice variety. Like I really liked the druid who could change like into an armadillo and like ignore the first hit, and like the mole will get more loot. Little things like that, but it does cost you to exhaust a card. So it's amazing the decisions that go into that, and your character really involves. Like I never played the Fell Knight because he seems like one that just wants to keep hurting himself. So I'm like, that's rough, man.
He's my favorite character.
Really?
Because I like that. I like that, dark magic type of thing where you take damage to do incredible amounts of damage. Or this guy, particularly, as he's damaged, if you take too many wounds, you lose. So you're like, I want to ride the line pretty well because I can spend wound cards as equipment functionally.
Yes.
I love that. That's really cool, right? But at some point, you better heal up. But you want to ride that line pretty well. Like, I got damage for 9. Ooh, yes.
It does have that blackjack feel because you feel like, okay, hit me. It's like, okay, I'm not, because you're trying not to bust your character up there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. But you know what? It's overall a very simple system. I like the little equipment. You just exhaust it, and then you can do a rest to unexhaust. I like that you cannot rest unless you're in battle.
Right. That was one thing. I thought I had to reread that several times. I'm like, it's not right. No, it is right. And it says sometimes you have to go find a battle to be able to rest.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I guess that makes sense. You don't reset in between every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise it'd be too easy. So I think mechanically there's a few rules that, are they thematic? No, like that one. But it keeps the game, it keeps the tension ramped up of the game, and I think that's a good choice.
It is. One thing I think is clever, too, on the hit point track, as you damage, normally you feel like you want to do the most damage possible, but then you want to stop along the way and pick up those, like, parry or refresh your cards and all that. And that type of math I found really interesting, and you got into later as you go deeper, that becomes more important. Then when you start, everything's ready, you're just starting to wail on people.
When you start with an enemy that has 28 health, you're like, whoo,
right.
I'm going to have to carefully approach this, right?
And I love that when you flip a card, you're like, it's a big one. It's like I just had to pull a king right there. I'm like, this is going to be rough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's going to be pretty random.
It is.
There's those elements, right? Are you going to reveal a 5 base health monster or a 13? And that's going to make a difference. But also, I think the luck of it will kind of even out over multiple plays. It's a quick game.
It is. It's very quick.
You should be able to play through it in 15, 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
Does it do enough to keep you interested throughout?
That's what I was wondering about, because it's hard to compare this game because I look at different things like Dark Tomb is like a traveling like dungeon style game. But again, you have to have it with you. This is literally a deck of cards you have to see for what it is. So I think, does it tickle that itch? I don't know, but it feels like a good solo game. Like, I don't know if I do the whole, it's too random for me to count up the loot and see if I could beat my last score. Because really that becomes random and which cards draw. But I think it's fun to kind of navigate the dungeon. So I do enjoy that.
I think that's maybe my biggest critique or my biggest complaint is at the end of the game, right, you can lose. Like, you can definitely lose.
Yeah.
But it's also like multiple times that I've lost has been fighting the boss, right? Getting to the very end. I needed one more round. I exhausted the deck. Or, I just took a big wound, right? But as satisfying as that win-loss is, at the end you just kind of count up the loot. I got 23 loot. Is that good or not, right? Yeah. There's not even like a scale at the end. They just kind of say, you won, count your loot. And it is really just a keep track of your scores, I guess, for fun.
Right.
I wish there were a little bit more of a satisfying point.
I agree. That's kind of where I am too. I mean, for me, the loot is secondary to I survive the dungeon.
Right.
That's it. Yeah, that's all it comes down to for me.
Yeah, so I think that's my big critique of the whole thing. But you know what? It does enough, fast enough, that I really enjoy the whole experience of this.
I agree.
So score-wise and kind of final thoughts wrapping up here, I'll go first. I'm going to give this one, I'm kind of bouncing between like a 7.5 and an 8. I'm going to go up to an 8 because I find this to be so fun. Like you said, reviewing this for what it is, this is something that I could pull out easily. I don't have to have a lot of overhead to remember the rules. And I would not judge it on just the first map.
No, don't do that.
I think that's the big thing for me, right? Is that the first map is a great introduction. The first characters are a little more straightforward.
Vanilla type thing, yeah.
But when you realize what they've changed in that second map, and with those new characters, the Fell Knight and the Druid that we were talking about earlier, those are the more memorable plays for me. And so I know that that Postmark Games is also going to support this with more content. And when I think about that, I think, I'm really excited to see what map 3 is going to be. What are the other characters? I hope they do more. And when I think of it that way, I realize, yeah, this game kind of has hooked its, it's got its hooks in me a little bit more than I realized. That's why I'm bumping it to an 8. I think this is beautiful, quick, fun.
I agree. I'm coming at a 7, and I can see it going up because, again, it's like one of those, I'm looking forward to playing more maps of this, and you told me don't judge by the first map. The second one, you got that druid and you're like, I'm shifting into eagle so I can travel. I'm going back and forth. I mean, it gave more theme than I thought it would be out of a deck of cards, but it does. People may not like the randomness. When you hit a monster, you're going to flip that card. It could be a 2 or it could be a king, which is, I think, at 12 or 13 or something. But anyway, so it's that type of randomness is there. But it's a quick game, so I think it's fun to just run and reset. And it's truly something you can travel with. And it's not as a print and play. You have it on your tablet and a deck of cards. You can play anywhere you are. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? It's just what it does with as little as it does. And you print it out once and you have it. You don't have to worry about laminating or marking it and printing new ones. I like that. I like Postmark's done several games like this.
Yep. Yeah. So I think definitely check it out.
All right. So there you go. High score of an 8, giving this one a seal of approval from us here at the Dice Tower. If you haven't done one of these before, Postmark is they're fantastic.
They're doing great games
at this niche here. Yeah. So go check it out. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
And have fun throwing cards at your opponents
as a druid.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Bassett.
Have you seen Sonic 3?
No, have you?
No, my daughter has, though.
How? Did she sneak out?
Yeah,
she sneaks out a lot.
Yeah. She watched the first 2 Sonics at her school, which calls into question the quality of the school she's going into. And then on a summer camp or a winter camp field trip, she went and watched Sonic 3. And I think, I need to watch any of these.
Kids in India are coding, and our kids are watching Sonic 1 and 2. Did she see Nosferatu?